Early this morning, I am in Central Park in Carmel, Indiana, and in this video we're going to talk not necessarily just about this particular park. I'm walking on this pretty cool trail. There's a little trailhead right outside the trail entrance here that I parked. But we're going to talk about kind of the accessibility of parks, because a lot of people want to be near parks whenever they move anywhere in Indianapolis or any of the cities and towns that surround it. So we'll talk about that. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time to the channel, you want to know what it's like to get to parks in Carmel, Indiana, or Indianapolis, Indiana, or if you have questions about Indianapolis or Carmel or Greenwood or Avon or Plainfield, any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also tap the little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now, we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about Carmel, Indiana, of course, Indianapolis, Indiana, or any of the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis. So if you have questions at all, then absolutely be sure to reach out any way that you know how. We'll absolutely have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to the Indy Metro. All right, again, guys, I'm in Central Park, and I'm actually walking along a little hiking trail. It's not terribly rugged, so if you're looking for hiking in a place like Carmel, Indiana, you're not going to find major, serious hiking almost anywhere. So if you're looking for big hills and miles and miles and miles of hiking, you're gonna have to go to the south of Indianapolis. Get down into Brown County State Park or Monroe or any of the huge state parks that are in southern Indiana. You can definitely get into some seriously cool hiking and camping and outdoor activities, that kind of thing down there. But I mean, this is certainly still an awesome place. This is Central Park, and there are other parks around Indianapolis in the city itself. In Indianapolis, you can get to places like Eagle Creek, which is fantastic. That is an awesome, enormous city park in Indianapolis. I gotta duck with some of these branches, because these trails are actually a little bit narrow. Or you can go over to Fort Benjamin Harrison State Park. That's a state park, not a municipal park, not a city park. And that is such an incredible state park attached right to Indianapolis. You can get some really nice hiking through there and some mountain biking, things like that too. Eagle Creek, you're gonna have some boating that you can do. And of course, tons of hiking around the park, and it's actually a little bit hilly. And you can do some cycling around there too through the park. It's really pretty cool. It's a cool place to be. But outside of Indianapolis, you still have Carmel, Fishers, Westfield, Noblesville, Zionsville, Brownsburg, Avon, Plainfield, Greenwood, Greenfield on the east side. They all have parks, every single one of the cities. So when people are talking with me about moving to the metro, very commonly, one of the things that people want is to be close to parks. They want to be able to bike. They want to be able to walk. They want to be able to run or hike. And every single one of those cities will have choices in some way. So you're gonna have options. Now, how extreme those options are, it can vary. So you can get some really awesome parks like this with awesome trails, but I wouldn't call, like I said at the beginning of the video, this very rugged. I mean, it's really cool to walk through, and you could come over here and certainly do some running. And as you get to know the park a little bit better, or any of the other parks, you can get your routes and you can get distances and get all that calculated. But everybody's got a certain level of what they want and how extreme they want to be. So all of the places are going to have choices. It's just a matter of, do I like that park enough? But the one thing I would say is kind of a bummer, it ends up being a bummer not to everybody, but to some, is that, okay, I want to live in a place that has parks nearby. Well, what does that mean? So if you want to be near a park, as in I want to walk out my door and I want to be able to walk to a park, well, that is going to be certainly more limiting geographically. You can do that. There is no doubt about it. That can actually happen. You're just gonna limit the number of areas that you're open to moving. So Central Park here, just as an example, if you wanted to live near Central Park, now Central Park is a very large park, and you've got the Monon Center and some other parts of this really large Carmel Park, but you could live on the outskirts of it. But a lot of the homes that surround this park are much older. So if an older home is not the thing that you want, then living right here next to this park is probably not gonna happen for you. And so I haven't walked too far into the trails here, but what you would end up having to do is you'd have to ride your bike here, and sometimes that's not necessarily the easiest thing. The good thing about Central Park is that the Monon Trail cuts right through it, and if you live, let's say, a few miles to the north, a few miles to the south, but you're close to the Monon Trail, well, you could ride your bike here, or you could run here along the Monon Trail. But if you didn't live near the Monon Trail and you had to ride your bike here, you're gonna be out on the road. You might be able to take some side roads and through some neighborhoods to get here, but in some cases you might not be able to do that just because of where you're at. So that means you have to drive here. And when you live near a park, sometimes that may be your only option to get to that park. You might have to drive there. And if you want to bring your bikes because you want to ride through the park, you got to strap them onto the van, you got to strap them onto the truck or the car or whatever it is that you're driving and bring the bikes. If you have kids, that means the kids have to go into the car, the van, or the truck, and you have to bring the kids here. So you can't walk with your kids here, ride your bikes with your kids here, unless you live very close. Now this is a story that I think probably happens. I've not been to every single city across the country, but I've been to a lot of cities across the country, and it seems to be the common story across the country that you might have a lot of great parks nearby in that city, but unless you live right next to it, then your access to the park is a little bit limited. Maybe the only way to maybe get to it is to drive. And so there are some great places to park in this park, in Central Park, different sections of it. I happen to park right here where I can get on this trail pretty easily, and you can go all the way back through there, and I can keep going over to, that's the west, and actually get a whole lot of walking in here. But if I wanted to be on the other side of the park, like over at the Monon Center or something like that, I'm probably not gonna park here. I'm probably gonna drive over to that particular part as well. Some parks are smaller, you don't have to worry about that. You park in one spot and you can enjoy the entire park. This one's just a little bit different, but I had to drive. I don't live near this park. In fact, where I live, I don't live all that close to any public parks. So I gotta drive pretty much to any one of them that I wanna go to. And I think that's gonna be the common story for anybody living around Indianapolis or in Indianapolis or any city across the country. Indianapolis and the cities that surround it, I don't think they're unique in that way where you're just tripping over parks. You have lots and lots of parks to choose from, and I think the Indianapolis park system is really quite nice, and it probably rivals a lot of the other park systems across the country. It's probably pretty shocking and surprising how good and how many parks there are in Indianapolis, you know, for but a big city, bigger city in the Midwest, and how many it has to choose from and to offer. But most people aren't gonna live next to one of them. You might live in a neighborhood that has its own park, but usually those are quite small. But if it's in your own neighborhood, you can ride your bike through the neighborhood, walk to it in a lot of cases, unless you're just clear on the other side of the neighborhood and the park is literally too far for you to do that, especially with little kids. Then you might have to even drive to the park that's in your own neighborhood. So if you're moving to Indianapolis and you wanna be near a park, and that's one of the boxes that you need to check, you can get that checked. But you have to have and allow some variability in there. So you have to know what is too far for you and what's close enough for you. And when you have your eye on a neighborhood or an area or some homes and we talk, then that's one of the things that we can figure out as far as your access goes to get to that park. What's it going to be like? Or what are your other options that are close by? And what does it even have to offer? A place like this has a lot to offer. Some parks don't have that much to offer. It's just a nice nature space, and that's about it. There's not much else there. So if you have questions about any of the parks or being close to parks, anything related to that in the Indianapolis Metro, then reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.